Oh, they are really hard. What'd you make that out of?
It's a mixture of acrylic, Bondo, and marble dust. And then I put the BBs there as like that embellishment. My name is Ruth Poor. We are here in Woodridge, Illinois, in my studio space in my garage. Welcome. It's it's a standard garage that comes with my apartment complex, but I've added some things to it for additional storage. So definitely added a little more scaffolding up here just to hold the majority of my larger work. I've added some shelving and pegboard for all my tools and supplies, just because it is kind of a smaller space. Next up is I'm going to be taking this wall space over here, putting some drywall up, so I have an area to photograph my work. And yeah, it's just a standard garage. I'm able to create a lot of work with what I have here, and I'm pretty resourceful. I've lived at this apartment complex now for about 4 years, 5 years. So I'm getting to the point that I'm definitely starting to run out of room. So I'll need to start finding like a storage space kind of soon. I experimented with dyeing. So I did the screen printing base here in this sort of purple, which goes throughout the full image. And then I dyed it, the background, this sort of pink and bluish purple color here. And this is also machine and hand stitched to create these not quite floral, but at least like organic kind of plant life. This here, like these all came from the same print, but then I went back and added the paint and embroidery to it. So taking them out of their context and changing it. And so in addition to like a lot of rural spaces, I'm interested in revisionist history, which revisionist history is sadly taught as well. Really not a lot of history based in truth, but American exceptionalism. So I'm interested in, other than paint, making something that could represent erasure. Paint also can change these images. So I'm thinking of revisionist histories too. I didn't realize it, but when I was making this one, it came around the time that Kathie Lee Gifford had that photo of her beheading Trump. I think this is Kathie Lee holding Trump's head in this bag. I'm pretty sure. And I didn't realize until after. I was like, oh, she has her little red hair, and then there's Trump's head going into a little bag.
There it is. What does it say?
Novus Ordo Seclorum, which means New World Order. This is from the same print that one's from.
Okay. Oh, I see the colors are similar too.
Yeah, so I used that purple was part of the original kind of print, and then I pulled them separately like I did with those smaller ones, and then embellished them differently. But it still has screen printing, stitching, and paint.
Oh, look at that good back bend.
Yeah, someone playing Twister, I think. And it's like, that's good back bend. I like that. This is analog extruded plastic. They're like a hot glue gun, but you put in a piece of plastic, and then it melts the plastic down and spits it out, and you're able to kind of draw like a 3D printer would. That's what I did with this plate here too. I made the flowers for these with the plastic extruder, and then started painting it. Because I didn't pay attention to the plates for a long time, And then I started doing more research. It's pretty shocking to see how much violence is in these little plates of just like harassment of women. I found this one of like these children that look like they're playing, but they have a little girl bent over and they're spanking her. They all take place in rural spaces or someplace that's like outside in a garden. And there's something supposed to be animalistic about people who are from rural spaces as well. Decorative arts and how they accessorize the rural and poor people is very interesting to me, especially being from a rural space. It's sometimes poking fun at it, but instead of, I don't know, anyone doing anything about it, it's like, oh, we're just going to make artwork about this funny thing that happens in rural spaces, these uncultured like people. It's hard for me because I want to talk about that, but I don't want it to be some sort of, I guess, scapegoat that I'm harping on, that all people from rural spaces are these just terrible people, which isn't true. But there are a lack of resources and there's a lack of knowledge. There's a glass ceiling that exists in rural spaces, and they're like that for a reason, because they lack resources. Like I mentioned before, I'm really interested in violence in rural spaces. I don't put men in a lot of my paintings because I don't want them to really exist in my work, but I think it's important that they're there every once in a while. So I have like my little army guy over here. Rural spaces especially are an incubator for people that go into the military. So it's really common for people, if you're going to be leaving out of town, it's either from college or going to the army. Those are really the only two reasons a lot of people leave. This is all hand embroidered, and this is on a jacquard weave woven background, and then I went through and did more machine stitching. This was something I was looking at a lot of old books that use both fiber and painting, and it's always put, like, painting's always in the center and it's always cared for, and then the craft and everything else is on the periphery. So I wanted to switch this one, leaving the embroidered parts and the hand stitching being cautiously kept in the center, and then this haphazard like stapling over top of paint, and it just, the paint is here purely just to be an accessory. So I was interested, this one for violence, but also the high and low again of painting and craft. This painting's titled Lessons in Rouge. I have this like projector and projector screen and this toile de jeu background, like again being taught histories through a romanticized lens, which is what I see a lot of toile de jeu as being, is a way to romanticize history.